How to manage risk in your business. It's important for you to understand that taking on a business will come with some inherent risks. Learning how to manage them is very important. Otherwise, you could end up making some of the worst business decisions in history, like these three examples I'm about to show you. Number one, identify your risks. It is important that you take some time to sit down and identify anything that could possibly go wrong in your business. Sometimes bad weather will impact a business like farms or tourism. Sometimes it could mean employees could get injured on the job, like with landscaping or putting roof on your house. And sometimes that could mean a competitor taking over with better innovations. For example, Blockbuster and Netflix. Reed Hastings from Netflix flew out to see the CEO of Blockbuster. While Hastings seemed underdressed, John Antioco was wearing designer Italian shoes. But Hastings had to swing the bat. He offered Blockbuster to buy his company for $50 million. Antioco laughed him out of the meeting. This was all the more resolve that David needed to defeat Goliath. After all, Hastings started Netflix because Blockbuster had charged him $40 in late fees after keeping an Apollo 13 DVD too long. It was a profitable business strategy. Blockbuster received $200 million in revenue each year, but it was something that irritated many customers, including Hastings. So, Netflix kept fighting the good fight for all of us. Instead of using VHS tapes, Netflix offered DVD mail orders with no late fees. It then started to use the internet to stream movies online for a nominal monthly fee. As the company continued to grow, so did its content, like House of Cards and Stranger Things. Then Netflix got into the international business from St. Petersburg to Sao Paulo to Singapore. With each year, Netflix adapted and grew while Blockbuster frantically tried to compete, but the writing was already on the wall. By the year 2010, Netflix was a $28 billion company and Blockbuster was bankrupt. Had Blockbuster properly assessed this competitor as a risk, we wouldn't have BoJack Horseman, unlimited movie streaming for $12, and we'd still be paying ridiculous late fees. Number two, assess what you can do to minimize your risks. Once you have identified your risks, you need to see what you can do to prevent them from happening as much as possible. Sometimes there is nothing that you can do, like the weather, but you can still minimize the impact. For example, farmers will usually save their money when they have good crop years instead of spending it. They know one year won't go well, so they'll have money to fall back on when they have a bad season. When it comes to landscaping, employees can take professional development to get better safety measures put in place, and they can also get certified in first aid. If you don't assess the problems correctly, you might have a tough battle recovering your reputation and your business. Customers at McDonald's had been regularly complaining to workers that their coffee was too hot. In fact, it had been going on for years. In the span of 10 years prior to this big lawsuit, McDonald's had been sued more than 700 times and settled out of court for a total of $500,000. Stella Liebeck was a 79-year-old lady at the time of her accident, where she spilled the 190-degree coffee directly on her lap. The coffee was so hot that it managed to give her third-degree burns on her thighs, buttocks, and groin area. Ouch. It was so severe that she required skin grafting on 6% of her body. Stella tried to settle out of court by asking for $20,000. McDonald's improperly assessed this situation, and they countered with $800. Stella assessed her situation and got a lawyer. In the end, Stella received $200,000 in medical costs, as well as an award of $2.7 million in punitive damages. McDonald's appealed, and Stella and McDonald's last settled out of court for an undisclosed amount that was under $600,000. Had McDonald's assessed the situation carefully and settled out of court with Stella the first time, the famous restaurant chain would have saved a lot of money in legal fees, as well as a ton of negative publicity. Oh, yeah, and they probably should have listened to the customers and lowered the temperature of the coffee. Number 3, prioritize your risks carefully. Schlitz Beer wasn't satisfied with being number 2. The president was willing to meet that challenge at all costs, prioritizing profit over quality. This priority changed everything about the beer to the detriment of the company. First, they cheapened the quality by making ill-advised substitutions to the ingredients. High fructose corn syrup, silica gels, and low-quality extracts were used to cut costs down. In addition, continuous fermentation at high temperatures were used to speed the process up instead of giving the product time to properly develop. This resulted in a nasty sludge that usually formed within the beer. As if that wasn't bad enough, they doubled down on their product by making advertisements threatening people that if they didn't drink their beer, you would get beaten up. This was poorly received by the public, calling the ads, "Drink Schlitz or I'll kill you." By the way, I can't show you the ad because I'll probably have legal action forced on me. I think we can all agree that Schlitz Beer didn't have their priorities straight. As a result, you have never heard of them, but I bet you've heard of their competitors, Anheuser-Busch, Miller, and Coors. To review, make sure you identify any risks that your budding business could face, including other competitors. Assess risk carefully, or you could be in for a lawsuit attached with bad publicity. And finally, prioritize your risks and tackle the most important problems first. Just make sure you don't become your own worst risk by being too greedy.